I want to move on to the presidential politics of it because it's getting very interesting. So JD Vance is definitely going to come under withering scrutiny, yes, for his friendship with Tucker. And already I mentioned the New York Times piece that you tweeted out that is quite interesting by this nutcase Jamal Bowie, who came out and wrote this long piece about JD, which is just crazy. Here's an excerpt from it. Again, the title is JD Vance is idling at the edges of American politics. He doesn't mean edgy in a nice way. He means fringy. Enter JD Vance, who, as my colleague Ezra Klein observed this week in an interview with my friend John Gantz, is functionally Groyper adjacent. The Groypers are Nick Fuentes followers. As the controversy around Fuentes, Carlson, and Heritage grew into a firestorm, Vance stayed quiet. At most, he decried the infighting. Fuentes considers the vice president's triangulation a victory of sorts. It is a sign, in other words, that Vance fears the political consequences of an open disavowal, so much so that he won't act on the pleas of some of his closest associates to challenge the Groypers. But while the vice president won't say where he stands, it is not hard to sense where his sympathies lie. This week, Vance sat for an interview with Sean Hannity of Fox News. Here he is discussing the housing crisis, quoting Vance. A lot of people, this is a quote, a lot of young people are saying housing is way too expensive. Why is that? Because we flooded the country with 30 million illegal immigrants who were taking houses that ought by right go to American citizens, end quote. Back to Jamal Bowie. Here's my question for you. You can parse all the rhetoric you'd like, but what is the actual practical difference between Vance's call for the removal and potential expropriation of illegal immigrants, defined in terms of ethnic and racial difference, and Fuentes' vision of a white ethno-state in what is now the United States? They look about the same to me. So here it is. You want the illegals who came in under Biden out. You are a Nick Fuentes, white supremacist, neo-Nazi Groyper, and that's manna from heaven as far as the New York Times sees JD Vance's presidential prospects.
You know, so much of this is out of ignorance. Nick Fuentes absolutely despises JD Vance. And one of the reasons why is that he's married to a woman who's Indian and has Indian children, half Indian descent. Kind of a weird white nationalist,
Glenn, he said that he would rather support Gavin Newsom because he married a white woman and has white kids than JD Vance because he married an Indian woman, an Indian American, and has a son named Vivek.
Isn't it an odd form of white nationalism, which is what they want to accuse JD Vance of, to decide that the person with whom you're going to build your entire life, who you're going to live next to side by side, with whom you're going to have your children, is not actually white, but of Indian descent, of Indian American, and your own children, as you knew what happened and love them more than anything, are half. That's a very odd white nationalist, isn't it? But
weird. He's doing it all wrong.
Yeah, that's a very poor choice that he made for a white nationalist. But the thing is, I think that this is one of the things that people have to realize. And I know you saw this article in Axios about Ezra Klein, who Jamal Bowie referenced, and it's basically about how even for an opinion columnist, he's kind of blurring the line between being an opinion columnist for the New York Times and being an activist and organizer for the Democratic Party. A lot of people in media, in these newspapers, the New York Times, the Washington Post, all these networks, have this view that it is their primary mission not to do journalism, but to organize for and win elections for the Democratic Party. And one of the ways you do that, there's no real benefit in demonizing Trump anymore as Hitler. He already ran twice. He's not running again. The person that they're looking at next is JD Vance. It's just like there's no more reason to say Dick Cheney and George Bush are Hitler the way they used to, because they're out of office. In the case of Cheney, he's dead. They're not a threat anymore. So they moved to Trump. Trump was Hitler. Trump was worse than Hitler. Now Trump's going out. And so now it's just the next time is to do it is JD Vance. And that's what this column is all about, is you might have thought Trump was bad, but Trump really, he wasn't a racist at the end of the day, the way JD Vance is. The newest iteration of Republican is always the real Hitler.
Yes. And then you have, speaking of potential fractions amongst the right wing, you have Senator Ted Cruz, who is definitely pro-Israel and neocon. There's an article about him in Axios saying he's potentially going to challenge JD Vance. And we know this from how outspoken he's been about Tucker. And like he calls Tucker an anti-Semite. It's definitely Tucker and Ted Cruz are not fans of one another. Ted Cruz went on there and within, the first 4 minutes basically accused Tucker of anti-Semitism. And then it didn't go well, not surprisingly. So they don't like each other. So Axios writes that. And then do we have the moment when Cruz went on Fox? Cruz went on Fox News today, and it was very clear he knew they were going to ask him about the Axios piece, pitching him as like the guy who's going to take on JD Vance. And he demurred, I'm focused on the people of Texas or whatever. But Ted Cruz has run for president many, many times. There's no reason not to believe he will do it again, especially if he thinks the main competition is going to be a JD Marco ticket, which he'll be able to spin Marco Rubio as more America First, JD Vance-ish than he is. Marco is definitely not a neocon anymore. So it does make you wonder what's going to happen when we gear up towards 2028 and whether that dream ticket of JD Marco that Trump has talked about is going to have smooth sailing getting the go-ahead, or whether you're going to have other contenders who say, not so fast. We want a primary and we want to be heard.
I think it's really worth remembering that in 2016, Trump ran against the Republican establishment. They were all aligned behind Jeb Bush and then Marco Rubio and then Ted Cruz at the end of the day. Anyone to stop Trump. And it was Trump's singular kind of charisma and political force that enabled him to win despite being completely opposed in every way by the Republican establishment, which to this day actually continues to hate him, even if they're more muted about it now. But they haven't gone away. And I think Ted Cruz senses that the Republican establishment will be important in 2028. They have immense amounts of money and institutional support, and they're more on his side of this argument. The problem, though, Megyn, is like one of the things Ted Cruz said in that interview with Tucker, which I to this day can't believe he said. He said, when I ran for Congress, I was determined to wake up every day and be Israel's leading supporter in the Congress. And every single day I've woken up to do exactly that. Now, good luck reconciling that with the America First politics and ideology that this entire new generation and the one before that has fed on in Republican politics for the last 10 to 15 years. I don't think those things are reconcilable. This is a different Republican Party. Post-Trump politics is different. And maybe that's his only lane and he's comfortable in it, but I don't think that's going to get someone very far.
You know as well as I do, Ted Cruz is definitely taking a lot of money from Israel-backed and Jewish-backed donors. So, that's, millions. But you know as well as I do that used to be a safe thing for a Republican. That used to be an unassailable statement, no matter where you were in the party on other issues. Like uniform backing of Israel was required of you. So it used to be a very safe thing to say. It's only more recent, and because Israel's in a war and this behavior has been controversial and all that has become even close to controversial. But Ted Cruz is still there. I mean, he's definitely still there. And it is one of those things. I'm not suggesting he doesn't believe it. I think he does believe that. But it is one of those things that makes it complicated depending on who your donors are, because, they need money to get reelected and they don't want to piss off the donors. And it's like, so is there room to change your opinion or isn't there? I don't know. It really, like, the people who get you elected with their money do have some control over you. My friend just lost her ring. She went to replace it. She realized it was a gold ring. The price of it has gone up like 25% since she bought the ring a year ago. That's because gold is on the march upward. And it is the one time of year that Birch Gold Group gives away free gold with every qualifying purchase. That's right, for Black Friday, when you convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in gold, Birch Gold will send free gold to your home for every $20,000 purchased. Gold started this year around $2,600 an ounce. By October, it was over $4,000 an ounce. Why? Global uncertainty. 2025 has been defined by trade wars, central banks are pulling from the US dollar as the global reserve currency, and military tension continues to build. Gold thrives in times of uncertainty, and if you are looking to diversify your savings, Birch Gold can help you. Plus, now through November 30th, get free gold, I say, with a qualifying purchase. Just text MK to the number 989898 to claim your eligibility and for a free info kit on gold. But your opportunity for free gold with purchase will end on November 30th, so don't wait. Text MK to the number 989898 for full details. Message and data rates may apply. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.